Good morning, class. In today's English class, we will start with chapter 6, A Young Girl and Her Diary. Now, before we start reading the chapter, children, just imagine how difficult it must be to live in a small room with 7 people for almost 2 years and never be allowed to step out and breathe fresh air. So, class, just imagine that if you are asked to live in a very small room, and that too not alone, in that small room you are living with 7 people, but not for a day or two, for almost 2 years. And there is a condition that you will not be allowed to step out. Step out means you are not allowed to move out or go out in the fresh air. You can even not peep from the window. आप विंडो से भी झांक के नहीं देख सकते. आपको एक छोटे से कमरे में 7 लोगों के साथ 2 साल तक रहना है विदाउट मूविंग आउट. किसी भी काम के लिए आप बाहर नहीं जा सकते. सो चिल्ड्रन, कैन यू जस्ट इमेजिन, जस्ट हैविंग अ थॉट ऑल्सो मेक्स अस फील स्केयर्ड. एक ये थॉट ही हमें डरा देता है कि ऐसी लाइफ कैसे होगी. And unfortunately, that is what Annie Frank, a 13-year-old, and her family had to do in Germany in the year 1942. But children, this is not just a dream or it's not just an imagination. It had actually happened to a girl who was just 13 years old, and her name was Annie Frank. She lived in Germany, and the story that we are going to read is about this girl, Annie Frank, and her family. So, let's read to find out more about her. During the World War II in Europe, the Nazis of Germany considered the Jews as inferior to them. So the time duration of the story is World War II. Somewhere near to World War II, जब World War II हुआ था, and the place is Europe. There were 2 communities in Europe, Nazis and Jews. Now, like in India, we have different communities like Hindus, Muslims, Christians, and so on. Similarly, in Europe, at that time, there were 2 communities, Nazis and Jews. Now, the problem was that the Nazis, they considered Jews as inferior to them. Inferior means kamzor समझते थे. So Nazis wanted to overpower the Jews. वो Jews पे कब्जा करना चाहते थे या Jews के ऊपर रूल करना चाहते थे. They wanted to destroy the Jewish people and their culture. So they wanted that people should either convert themselves to Nazis or they should go away from that country. So what they started doing? As a result, they started sending the Jews to prison camp. And so, as they wanted to show their supremacies, Nazis, they wanted to show that they are superior, कि वो ज़्यादा बलशाली, शक्तिशाली हैं Jews से. So उन्होंने क्या किया? They started destroying the Jewish people. उनको जहाँ पे भी Jews दिखते थे वो उनको मार देते थे, या फिर they started sending them to prison camps, या उनको पकड़ के जेल में बंद कर देते थे. So actually this fight was between Nazis and Jews. Annie Frank was also a Jew. Now, Annie Frank, about whom the entire story is, that little girl belonged to Jews community. To save herself and her family, Annie, along with her mother Edith, father Otto, and sister Margaret, went into hiding into the backroom office and warehouse of Annie's father's business. Now, Annie was also a Jew. So, as you already know that Nazis were after the lives of Jews. Nazis Jews के पीछे पड़े थे. So Annie wanted to save herself and her family. अपने और अपनी family को बचाना चाहती थी. So to save her life and the life of her family, what the family decided? They went into hiding in the backroom office and warehouse of Annie's father's business. So Annie's father was a businessman and they had a warehouse. Warehouse क्या होता है? Warehouse is like a store room जहाँ पे आप एक्स्ट्रा सामान घर का या बिजनेस का स्टोर करते हैं. So they went there. There was a room and they started living in that room. 4 other Jews also hid with them in the small space. Now in that small room of the warehouse का जो छोटा सा कमरा था या जो warehouse था, there how many people were living? Annie's family was there, and in family who all were there? Annie Frank herself, her mother, her sister, and her father. They all were the family members. Along with other 4 people also started living there. Their non-Jewish friends smuggled food and other supplies to them. Now, Jews were not allowed to step out. वो तो घर से बाहर जा नहीं सकते थे कुछ भी लेने के लिए. But they needed food to survive. But उनको जान बचाने के लिए, जिंदा रहने के लिए खाने की ज़रूरत थी. So what happened? They had some non-Jewish friends. So they started supplying the food. They started smuggling the food. Now smuggled word means what? Secretly किसी सामान को पहुंचाना. To transfer something secretly or illegally without the permission of government. They started doing it. चोरी छुपे वो खाना लाके उनको पहुंचा देते थे so that they were able to survive. Annie Frank was born on 12th June 1929. She began to keep a diary on her 13th birthday. That was on 12th June 1942. 3 weeks later, they went into hiding. So Annie was born on 1929. That is on 12th June in year 1929. And when she was 13 years old, she started keeping a diary. That means she had a diary where she used to write everything that she was experiencing. जो भी उसकी लाइफ में होता था वो उस डायरी में लिखती थी. And after her 13th birthday, that was on 12th June 1942. That means 1942 में उसका 13th birthday हुआ and 3 weeks later they went into hiding. And after 3 weeks, that is in year 1942 only, they went to the warehouse and they were hiding there. Annie's family never left their hideout until, unfortunately, the Nazi police discovered them in August 1944. So, they went into that warehouse for hiding in 1942. 1942 में वो छुप गए थे. And in 1944, when Nazis police discovered them, at that time, they left that warehouse and they came out. So it was almost 2 years from 1942 to 1944. Almost 2 साल वो उस छोटे से कमरे में warehouse के रहे. They were then moved to the concentration camp where Annie's mother died in 1945. So, once they were discovered, जब घर घर जाके पुलिस छापे मारने लगी and Annie along with her family were discovered by Nazi police, they were shifted to concentration camp. Now what is this concentration camp? Concentration camp is a place where prisoners are held, जहाँ पे पॉलिटिकल प्रिजनर्स, जहाँ पे प्रिजनर्स कौन होते हैं, कैदियों को रखा जाता है. सो दे वर ऑल्सो इन अ वे दे वर केप्ट इन अ प्रिजन. नाउ देयर व्हाट हैपेंड, Annie's mother died in 1945. So there first Annie's mother died. Annie की mother की death हो गई 1945 में. Soon afterward, Annie and her sister also died of an infectious disease. And once her mother left this world, after that Annie and her sister, दोनों को कोई disease हो गई, infectious disease. And due to that, what happened? Both were dead. Annie and her sister also left this world. Now, who was left in the family? Their father was the only family member who had survived. So, there were 4 members: Annie, her sister, her mother, and her father. Now, mother died once they were shifted to concentration camp. After that, Annie and her sister were dead, and now who was left in the family? Father. When friends found Annie's diary in a hiding place, they gave it to her father, who got it published in 1947. So, some of the friends of Annie, they discovered the Annie's diary in a hiding place. In a hiding place means in that warehouse where Annie was hiding, जहाँ पे पूरी फैमिली छुपी हुई थी 2 साल तक, their friends later on they found some diary, and that diary was of Annie. उन्होंने, because वो Annie की थी, so that they handed over that diary to Annie's father. And what father did with that diary? Father got it published in 1947. Right? Published word means he made it in a form of a printed book. Right? Annie, who missed the company of her friends, had maintained a diary. Ultimately, the closest friend she had during her tragically short life was her diary. She addressed it as Kitty. It was only to Kitty that she entrusted her innermost thoughts. So, Annie had a diary, and Annie had a tough time, right? So, the only company of her friends, she missed the company of her friends, so at that time she maintained a diary. जब वो 2 साल तक एक वेयर हाउस में रही, she was not allowed to step out, she was not allowed to meet anybody, so she was obviously missing her friends. So now what happened? She started maintaining a diary. वो डायरी लिखने लगी. And in this tragically short life, tragically means life that was full of unhappiness. That is tragically, right? So उसकी जो छोटी सी life थी, in that the closest friend that she had was her diary. And she addressed it as Kitty. और उसने अपनी डायरी को एक नाम दिया था जिसका नाम था Kitty. And it was only to Kitty that she entrusted her innermost thoughts. और जो भी उसके thoughts थे, entrusted word means confided, means जो भी वो सोचती थी, मे बी अपने पेरेंट्स या फैमिली से शेयर नहीं करती थी, but she used to share those things with her diary. Annie's thoughts of courage and hope are recorded in her diary. They have inspired millions of readers throughout the world. So, Annie के जो भी courageous thoughts थे, means though she was having a life that was full of unhappiness, शी वॉज फेसिंग लॉट ऑफ प्रॉब्लम्स इन हर लिटिल स्पैन ऑफ लाइफ. जो भी उसकी छोटी मोटी ज़िंदगी थी उसमें उसने बहुत दुख देखे थे. बट शी वॉज वेरी करेजियस एंड होपफुल. वो हमेशा आशावादी रहती थी और बहुत ही ब्रेव गर्ल थी. एंड जो भी उसने अपनी डायरी में लिखा, वॉट एवर शी हैज़ रिटन इन हर डायरी, those things have really inspired millions of readers throughout the world, because later that diary was published in the form of a book and people read it and they got a lot of inspiration, motivation from that diary. Here are some excerpts from her diary. Excerpts word means कुछ portions या कुछ extracts हैं उसकी डायरी के, because entire diary cannot be addressed in one chapter, so there are small portions are there. When I write, I can shake off all my cares. April 5, 1944. So this was written by Annie in 1944 and the date was 5th April. When I write, I can shake off all my cares. Shake off word means I can forget. All my cares means all my worries. जो भी मेरे दुख हैं, whatever things I am facing, whatever are the problems in life, whenever I write diary, I can forget everything. I tend to forget everything. मैं सब चीज़ें भूल जाती हूँ and I feel very relaxed. Describing her despair. Despair word means hopelessness. Means she wanted to do lot for the world. वो दुनिया के लिए बहुत कुछ करना चाहती थी. But she was unable to do. So that thing she has written in this diary. I have reached the point where I hardly care whether I live or die. Just see the thought process of that little girl. She was living in a small room which was stuffed with people. It was like a prison. She was not allowed to step out for almost 2 years. Then she was shifted to that concentration camp. जेल में भेज दी गई. But still, she was very hopeful. And see what she has written. I have reached the point where I hardly care whether I live or die. She is saying that मैं लाइफ के उस मोड़ पे पहुंच चुकी हूँ. I have reached that point of life where I know whether I die or I live. चाहे मैं जीऊँ चाहे मैं मरूँ. It hardly matters. The world will keep on turning without me. And I can't do anything to change events anyway. She is saying that I am not so important for this world. Even if I die, the world will keep on turning. Keep on turning means will keep on moving. वो जैसे चीज़ें चल रही हैं ऐसे ही चलती रहेंगी. Without me, मेरे बिना भी दुनिया चलती रहेगी. And I can't do anything to change events anyway. And even if I want to change what is happening outside, if I want that Nazis and Jews become friends, then also I can't do. मैं ऐसा कुछ कर भी नहीं सकती बाहर जाके. I'll just let matters take their course. Course is their way. So, let the time decide what will happen and let things take their own shape. जैसी चल रही हैं चीज़ें अपने आप आगे जाके अपना मोड़ ले लेंगी. They will take their own shape. And concentrate on studying and hope that everything will be all right in the end. And then she stated that though I want to do lot for the world, but I'm helpless. I can't do anything. And I not even know that whether I'll live or I'll die. So it's better to concentrate on my studies and let's hope for the best that everything will become fine. सारी चीज़ें अच्छे से हो जाएंगी. And this she wrote on 1944, in 1944 on Feb 3, that is 3rd Feb 1944. Now later what happened? Next was on her old country Germany. She wrote a small passage. Fine specimens of humanity, those German, and to think I'm actually one of them. No, that's not true. Hitler took away our nationality long ago. And besides, there are no greater enemies on earth than the Germans and Jews. This she wrote on 9th October 1942. Now, what she meant by these lines? She meant that find specimens means examples, of humanity. Humanity means mankind. Those Germans, and to think I'm actually one of them. No, that's not true. Hitler took away our nationality long ago. So, she said that Germans, they were the fine examples of humanity. German के जो लोग थे जर्मनी के, उनमें मानवता, humanity बहुत ज़्यादा थी. But later what happened? Hitler took away our nationality. हमारी जो जर्मन एक nationality थी, it was snatched away by Hitler because Hitler was a very cruel king, right? And besides, there are no greater enemies on the earth than Germans and Jews. And today, what is the condition? That Germans, that are Nazis, and the Jews, they are the biggest enemy. Means she is stating that sometimes back, दोनों एक थे. हमारी नेशनैलिटी जर्मन मानी जाती थी, बट आज जर्मन्स एंड ज्यूज दो पार्ट्स हो गए हैं एंड पीपल आर फाइटिंग with each other. Then, on still believing, she said, it's a wonder I haven't abandoned all my ideals. They seem so absurd and impractical. Yet, I cling to them because I still believe, in spite of everything, that people are truly good at heart. Now, what happened? She is saying that it's a wonder I haven't abandoned. Abandon means left, and ideals means principles, that is sanskar, या आपकी beliefs. So she is saying that in this situation, जब सारी चीज़ें negative हो रही हैं, in such a situation also, I haven't left my principles. मेरे सिद्धांत, मेरी बिलीव्स मैंने नहीं छोड़ी हैं. एंड माई आइडल्स आर टुडे ऑल्सो विद मी. और जो भी मेरे पेरेंट्स ने, मेरी फैमिली ने मुझे सिखाया है, वो आज भी मेरे साथ है. एंड इट सीम्स सो इम्प्रैक्टिकल एंड एब्सर्ड. इम्प्रैक्टिकल एंड एब्सर्ड मीन्स बहुत ही अजीब लगता है. Yet I cling to them. Cling means yet I stick to them. मैं उनको follow करती हूँ because I still believe, in spite of everything, that people are truly good at heart. So she is saying that चाहे जो हो जाए, I still believe कि लोग दिल से अच्छे हैं. So she was thinking even good of Nazis. It's utterly impossible for me to build my life on a foundation of chaos, suffering, and death. Chaos means confusion. So there is a lot of confusion outside. There is a lot of suffering. People are suffering from pain. There are a lot of deaths. And it is utterly impossible for me to build my life. और मैं ऐसी दुनिया में अपनी लाइफ को डेवलप नहीं कर सकती. I see the world being slowly transformed into a wilderness. Wilderness means बहुत ही खूंखार रूप लेता जा रहा है, बहुत ही क्रूएलिटी आती जा रही है. in this world. People are killing each other, like they are becoming wild, ferocious, गुस्साल होते जा रहे हैं. I hear the approaching thunder. Approaching means that is coming near, and thunder means over here it means the problem. One day will destroy us too. I feel the suffering of millions. So she is saying that I can see the future, that whatever things are going on right now, that Nazis are killing the Jews, people are suffering a lot. Daily, so many people are killed. So, seeing all these things, I can see that our near future also people are going to suffer. And yet, when I look up at the sky, I somehow feel that everything will change for the better, that this cruelty too shall end, that peace and tranquility will return once more. So, she is saying that though there will be a lot of sufferings in future also, but still, when I look up at the sky, कि जब मैं ऊपर देखती हूँ, that is I look up at the sky means I see to the God, I feel that things will really change. चीज़ें बदलेंगी. And in future what will happen? Cruelty too shall end. Cruelty means जो लोग अभी एक दूसरे को मार रहे हैं, ये सारी चीज़ें फिनिश हो जाएंगी. And what will be left? Peace and tranquility. Peace and tranquility means शांति होगी. And this she wrote on 5th July 1944. So children, this was the story of this little girl Annie Frank, and her diary got published by the name The Diary of a Young Girl. And I think that we all should learn something from her life. This is one of the quote that Annie stated: think of all the beauty still left around you and be happy. That means in whatever adverse or bad situations you are, if you look around yourself, you will find happiness. आपको कहीं ना कहीं तो खुशी मिलेगी ही. So think of the beautiful world. Think of the beauty that is left around you and be happy. Do not curse your bad days or the bad situations and become hopeless or nervous. So, in short, be courageous and hopeful. Right? Thank you.